$100 is small enough to ignore and powerful enough to change your future. That's the trap. Most people only notice money when it feels traumatic, but the decisions that reshape your life usually look completely forgettable at first. If $100 barely matters, why do the people who direct it early end up in a completely different place? And why do the people who delay it keep feeling like they'll start later, right before later gets more expensive? So let's follow one ordinary $100 a month and watch what it actually changes. Not your lifestyle next week, something much more important. Your habits, your reactions, your attention, and eventually your options. Most people don't remember where this 100 went. It wasn't one dramatic purchase. It was convenience, habits, and a few invisible renewals. That's exactly why it feels harmless until you realize it keeps disappearing every single month. Delaying feels responsible because it sounds thoughtful, but most delays are not strategy. They're discomfort wearing polite language. Every month you wait, you're not just postponing money, you're postponing the moment this becomes part of who you are.
This is not a flashy money story. It's a behavior story disguised as a finance story. $100 a month matters because it flips 3 switches at once: who you think you are, what you notice, and how long you can stay patient. The first practical move is boring on purpose. Open the account, choose a simple broad market fund category, and automate the transfer. The magic is not in complexity. It's in removing the need to negotiate with yourself every month. Here's where the story actually starts. The 100 doesn't vanish into 10 forgettable purchases anymore. It gets a job. And once money has a job, your relationship with it starts changing faster than your balance does. The first month barely changes your numbers, but it changes your category. Yesterday, you were planning to invest. Today, you're someone who already did. That sounds small until you realize how much behavior flows from that sentence. There's a huge difference between admiring investing and participating in it. The moment you own even a tiny slice, the world stops feeling like something other people understand. You've stepped onto the field, even if only one foot is in.
The shift starts in ordinary moments. You buy coffee, use an app, walk past a company logo, and for the first time, you don't only see a customer experience, you see a tiny piece of a system you now partially own. Automation is not about discipline theater, it's about peace. If the transfer happens before your mood gets involved, good months and messy months both keep feeding the same long-term habit. The transfer also changes how other purchases feel. Not all spending becomes bad, it just has new competition. Once you've felt the satisfaction of owning something productive, random convenience buys lose a little of their old power. From the outside, almost nothing looks different yet, and that's exactly where people make the wrong call. In the first year, the biggest growth is underground: automatic behavior, patience, and a new baseline that will hold when the numbers finally test you. Most people do not need a perfect investing choice. They need one they won't sabotage. A simple, diversified system is powerful partly because it gives you fewer chances to second-guess yourself, overreact, and break the habit.
That's the hidden gift of month 1. Next month is no longer a fresh debate. You're not asking, should I start? You're asking, do I continue? And those are completely different decisions. By month 6, you may hit your first real test. You've put in 600, then the market has a rough stretch, and the number reads 563. Nothing dramatic happened, but your brain suddenly wants action. This is where investing stops being arithmetic and becomes psychology. The uncomfortable move feels active and intelligent. The disciplined move feels passive. But long-term investing often rewards the person who can tolerate temporary discomfort without rewriting the plan. The tricky part is that strong recovery days often show up close to the ugly ones. If you step away because the chart feels uncomfortable, you may also step away from the exact days that repair long-term progress. JP Morgan's market timing research makes this painfully clear. Missing just a handful of the best days can slash long-term returns, and many of those strong days arrive close to the worst ones. Patience is not laziness here, it's the edge. If you're trying to decide at month 6 whether the strategy works, you're asking the wrong question too early. This is not a verdict stage, it's a behavior stage. You're not proving the outcome yet, you're proving the process.
A rough stretch is not evidence that the plan is broken. It is part of the price of entry for a long horizon. The question is not whether this feels comfortable. The question is whether you're willing to let time do the work you hired it to do. It helps to separate two facts. One, you contributed $600. Two, the market is temporarily valuing that pile at $563. The first fact is your behavior. The second is the market's current mood. The best response to the first test is often beautifully boring. Let month 7 happen. Not because you know next month will be better, but because your system should not depend on your latest emotion. After year 1, the profit may only look like a few extra dollars on top of your $1,200. That's fine. The point is not that the gain is impressive. The point is that the machine has started answering back.
This is the phase where many people quit because the balance still looks ordinary, but ordinary is not the right measurement yet. You're building momentum, the kind that makes future decisions easier and future growth less dependent on motivation. Something powerful happens when a habit gets boring. It stops draining energy. The transfer becomes part of your background system, and that frees your attention for better questions than, will I feel like doing this month? This habit pays you twice, first through the account itself, then through sharper attention. Suddenly, small financial leaks stop looking harmless because you can now see them as future months of growth quietly leaving through the side door. The goal is not to become joyless, it's to interrupt autopilot. Investing gives you a comparison point, so spending decisions stop being automatic and start competing with a future you now actually care about. By year 5, the balance starts looking different. Now the account isn't just your deposits wearing a new hat. Growth is visibly participating. Roughly 1/5 of the pile may be profit, and that changes how the whole process feels.
This is also where a new risk shows up. Not panic, comfort. Once the habit has proven itself a little, the voice in your head changes. It stops saying, "This won't work," and starts saying, "You can pause now." A 3-year pause around this stage can quietly cost around $19,000 by year 30. Not because the pause feels large now, but because the missing years don't just remove deposits, they remove future compounding time. Once you start investing, waste gets louder. Fees, card interest, subscriptions you forgot about, they stop looking like harmless noise and start looking like money that could have been buying you more time and more ownership. A fee feels harmless because it doesn't look like spending. There's no excitement, no memorable moment, no visible purchase. It just quietly removes a slice of your result every year while your attention is pulled somewhere brighter. Sometimes the smartest next move is not investing more. It's stopping the thing that keeps dragging you backward faster than your investments can move you forward. Good systems care about sequence, not ego.
Forgotten subscriptions are not a money problem first. They're an attention problem. Every renewal is a past decision still charging your future self. Investing makes that kind of drift much harder to ignore. A lot of financial progress is invisible from the outside. That's why people confuse visible spending with real strength. But control is usually quieter. It shows up in lower pressure, better options, and fewer decisions made from urgency. This isn't about squeezing joy out of life. It's about noticing which expenses actually support your life and which ones simply happened because no one was paying attention. Clarity feels lighter than impulse. Once you patch a few leaks, the habit gets easier. Now the $100 doesn't always need to come from willpower. Sometimes it comes from money that was already leaving. You just finally gave it a better destination. Now the system is cleaner, and that matters because the next phase brings a different danger, not chaos, success. When life improves, the real question becomes whether your habit keeps its place or gets replaced by lifestyle creep.
When income rises a little, spending often grows first. Not because people are careless, but because comfort expands naturally. That's why your $100 habit matters even more here. It protects a piece of progress from being reabsorbed. It's easy to invest when life is grim and you're trying to fix something. It's much harder when life gets better and every extra dollar suddenly has 10 pleasant places to go. Keeping the habit then is real progress.
Around year 10, the account may sit near $17,400. More important than the number is the feeling. The habit now belongs to your life the way rent, bills, and other recurring systems do. It's normal. This is where the math finally starts feeling different. Your deposits still matter, of course, but the market is now doing a meaningful part of the lifting. The system has moved from fragile to cooperative. Here's the strange milestone nobody celebrates. When the process becomes a little boring, it may be the first sign it finally works. You no longer need excitement to do the right thing. The system has taken work away from your mood.
Weak habits depend on motivation. Strong ones depend on identity. By now, you're not just someone trying to remember to invest. You're someone whose month is already built around the fact that investing happens. Now comes the part most people underestimate. The second decade does not feel like a slightly bigger version of the first. It feels like the same machine finally reaching the speed it was quietly built for. From here, the job gets simpler and more important at the same time. Keep feeding the machine and avoid interrupting it without a very good reason. The next stretch is where consistency starts looking disproportionately powerful. By year 20, the account may be around $52,000. And this is the moment the story flips. Your own contributions are now smaller than the growth the market has added over time. The machine is truly helping. Your monthly 100 still matters, but the account is no longer relying on that 100 the way it used to. Time has built internal momentum, and momentum changes what even a simple contribution can do.
This is also where your emotional relationship with money can soften. You're not staring at the app hoping for rescue. You're checking in with curiosity. That shift matters because calmer people usually make better long-term decisions. Nothing magical happened to the $100 itself. The context changed. In a mature system, the same monthly input can have a much larger long-term effect because there's already momentum there to catch it. By this point, the real reward is not just a larger number, it's optionality. More room to wait, more room to think, and more room to make decisions without every choice needing to solve today's problem. Here's what people often confuse. One life can look richer from the outside, while another feels steadier on the inside. As your system matures, that gap becomes hard to miss. Visible polish and real control are not the same thing. If you only glance at the early part of the curve, compounding looks polite. The last stretch is where it starts looking unfair. Same habit, same contribution, same person, just much more time underneath the system. And now we reach the part that sounds exaggerated until you see the math laid out carefully. 3 decades is long enough for a modest habit to stop looking modest. After 30 years, that $100 habit can grow to roughly $121,000. You put in $36,000. Time and market growth do the rest. That's when the story stops feeling small. Another way to see it, for every dollar you contributed, the market may have added about $2.36 more. Not because of a trick, because the habit was given enough years to matter. $100 spent tonight is not evil, it just ends tonight. $100 invested each month gets to keep working after the moment is over. That's the real difference, duration. This is why people misread compounding. The early years look patient, almost unimpressive. The last decade is where the curve finally tells the truth. Most of the visible growth arrives later than your instincts expect.
Compounding needs time the way fire needs oxygen. The monthly contribution matters, but the long burn matters more. Cut off the time and the process never gets hot enough to show what it can really do. If your first reaction is, "That sounds too neat," good. That's exactly how long-term compounding feels to a brain trained on monthly budgets. We feel the price of 1 month clearly. We feel the force of 360 months very poorly. What looks impressive at year 30 is just repetition viewed from far enough away. No single month was dramatic. No single transfer changed everything. The power came from staying in the game long enough for small steps to stack. Once you understand this, the question changes. It's not only how much can I invest, it's also how much time can I give this process. Starting earlier changes the whole equation before the amount even changes. A head start doesn't make effort unnecessary, it makes effort more efficient.
The earlier you begin, the less each later month has to carry the whole future by itself.
This is where intuition really breaks. Starting at $25 with $100 a month can beat starting at $35 with $300 a month. Not because the amount doesn't matter, because the extra decade acts like a hidden lever most people constantly undervalue. The most expensive delay is often the one that feels harmless. You tell yourself you're waiting for a better moment, but the moment you're really spending is time, and time does not refund itself later. This is why starting small matters. Real life does not unfold on a clean spreadsheet. A sustainable habit survives moves, stress, family changes, and uneven months far better than an aggressive plan you can't keep. None of this is meant to shame a later start. Earlier helps, yes, but later still counts. The lesson is not you missed it. The lesson is that the best remaining timeline is the one you stop postponing. And that brings us to the real point. The account matters, but the deeper change is the person who built it. Someone a little calmer, a little more deliberate, and a lot less dependent on short-term noise.
Maybe the most meaningful change is this. You stop opening your financial apps like they're bringing bad news. You start opening them with curiosity, because money is no longer something only happening to you. No one controls markets, life events, or every financial outcome. That's not the promise. The promise is participation. You stop drifting quite so much and start steering a little more intentionally. There's a big difference between looking financially impressive and feeling financially steady. The first gets more attention. The second gives you more peace. Over time, this habit nudges you toward the second. At some point, the question stops being, which number looks more impressive? It becomes much more personal. Do you want to look more expensive now or buy more freedom later? That's where money turns into a life design decision. The biggest wins here are often invisible at first. Better attention, better patience, better trade-offs. Those changes may not impress anyone at dinner, but they can quietly change the direction of your life.
If you want to turn this into action, don't start perfectly. Start sustainably. The right amount is the one you can repeat without resentment, not the one that makes you feel impressive for 2 months and exhausted by month 3. Second, automate the transfer as close to payday as your cash flow comfortably allows. The less time money sits around waiting to be spent by accident, the easier the habit becomes. Third, keep the approach simple. For many long-term learners, broad diversification and low friction make more sense than chasing complexity. This is education, not personal advice, just a reminder that simple often travels farther. If your financial life is still being held together by concentration and luck, don't pretend it's already a stable system. Strengthen the base first. Investing habits grow much better on a steadier foundation than on quiet monthly chaos. Finally, review the plan on a calm schedule instead of reacting to every headline. Let the system run. This is educational, not personal advice, and your real plan should fit your own goals, timeline, and comfort with risk.
$100 invested today probably won't change your life this month, and that's exactly why people underestimate it. They wait for the action that feels dramatic, then ignore the action that quietly changes trajectory. But it may change the person making decisions next month, and the month after that, and the year after that. That's why this matters. The money grows, yes, but the decision maker grows with it. So if this lesson fits your situation, consider setting up the transfer and making the decision once. Let the system carry more of the work. The goal is not intensity, it's continuity. Everything we covered, identity, patience, awareness, optionality, and long-term growth, starts in a place that looks almost too ordinary to matter. That's the trick. Big outcomes often begin disguised as small repeating actions. Thanks for watching. If this made money feel clearer and calmer, subscribe and keep going with the next video. We'll unpack the trap of lifestyle inflation, the moment income rises, but freedom somehow doesn't rise with it.